This episode of Terrible Tuesday Movie Night was edited after its initial final recording and or release. Thank you for your understanding.
We may have won the battle, but they will win the war!
Buttmeister presents Real Men of Genius.
Real Men of Genius!
Today we salute you, Mr. Warmongering Latent Homosexual.
Mr. Warmongering Latent Homosexual!
Wearing nothing but leather underwear and a cape, you charge your enemy like an oiled-up hairless wonder.
Spray on tan!
Sure, there's danger. Charging rhinos, stampeding elephants, and that cute toga-wearing guy named Chad.
Ooh.
You only went out on one date, but you'll remember it forever. Forever.
Take your daily foul tricks!
Your keen instincts tell you to cut, slice, and chop every man you see. But enough about your career as a hairstylist. Let's talk war.
Ow! The curling iron is hot!
So this butt's for you, King Leonidas, because when the going gets tough, the tough go antiquing.
Mr. Warmongering Latent Homosexual!
Warning. This show is intended for a mature audience only and may contain harsh language, sexual references, and derogatory terms. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh, what do we have here? We have yet another Terrible Tuesday Movie Night. The show where we watch bad movies so you don't have to. Season 2, Episode 10, number 49 overall. I'm Dale Segev. Thank you for joining me. This is another Terrible Tuesday Movie Night. We had a slight programming change quite last minute. So I am writing a solo today, but that doesn't matter because I think I still went ahead and watched Meet the Spartans. Oh, as I was going to say spoiler, but you know you've seen the title of this video. I am away at the moment, so hopefully the microphone quality is up to regular standards. We have had some mobile studio upgrades, so hopefully you're hearing this at the quality that you so deserve. Now, that's enough of that right now. But thank you so much for joining me on Terrible Tuesday Movie Night. We've got 2 more episodes after this. Full stop. End of the series. So yes, we did watch 2008's Meet the Spartans. And oh my god, what an interesting journey it has been. But for now, we're going to be doing the classic thing that we like to do here on Terrible Tuesday Movie Night. We're going to listen to a very video trailer of this movie. So without further ado, here is Meet the Spartans.
This is Sparta! Spartans! We about to stomp the yard. You got served.
Get ready.
Now we match! Yay!
For the next big epic comedy.
Please.
Gaga, 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 gaga.
Meet the Spartans.
I don't think we've ever talked about this on the show before, but some trailers that we get here at Terrible Tuesday Movie Night are very vague in nature. And Meet the Spartans, both trailers actually are quite vague in nature. So, it's interesting to me to kind of listen back to that trailer and go, that gives nothing away. And I understand that trailers want to leave you with questions, but I think in this case it leaves with a little bit too many questions. It's very windy where I am, so hopefully that's not coming up on the microphone. Like I said, new setup just for this episode only. It is what it is. Welcome to recording a series of episodes over a long period of time. We're nearly there. By the way. What was I going to say? I was saying, yeah, so it needs to hook you a bit. And I think, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, the hook of the trailer is that pit of death. And going into the first impressions of this is not the first time that I've watched this movie. And I think that's a phenomenon on this show as well. A lot of these movies I hadn't seen before. I actually have seen Meet the Spartans before. It was a very popular film that was shown in our household when I was younger. Again, we're talking 2008. So we're talking, 24 years ago this movie came out? No. There's no way. Hang on. There's no way that this movie is... No. 14 years ago. 16 years ago. Jeepers, this movie is 16 years old. My God, some of the references though as well in this movie, you can tell this movie is 16 years old. But that's crazy that 16 years ago I was watching this movie with a particular family member. I don't know what was going through my head, but hey, they liked it. So, and it was the only thing on. So, I watched it. Of course I did. But now being a little bit older, I have a completely different lens. I also now have 16 years worth of experience behind me to compare this movie to, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But my first impressions of this watching right now for Terrible Tuesday Movie Night is I don't like. It's an interesting watch. It's a movie I thought was longer. Now, its runtime technically. There's only an hour and 9 minutes of main film. The rest of the runtime are credits, which is crazy to me. But I suppose credits for any movie go really, really long. But for a main plot parody movie to be an hour and 9 minutes is wild. I've watched more TV movies in this series that have run for shorter time. So we'll get into my notes on this movie a little bit later on, but some opening credits, just so these credits don't go for an hour and 9 minutes, are released in the USA on January 25th, 2008. Now, this is the first movie in Terrible Tuesday Movie Night history that is co-directed. Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. Now, those two names are very important in the parody movie space because they directed, wrote, and starred, I think, or they wrote and produced. Yeah, they wrote, directed, and produced two of the scary movies, which is on Terrible Tuesday Movie Night's radar anyway. I think I'm going to check the spreadsheet, but I do want to watch those movies again because those movies are by definition terrible movies. So there you go. First time in history that has happened. So we've got 5 main actors and actresses here. None of them have Terrible Tuesday Movie Night connections, which is wild to me because these guys have been in combined over 1,000 movies. So it's interesting. Sean Maguire as Leonidas Landorus. He's a Pokemon. Kevin Sorbo as Captain. Carmen Electra as Queen Margot. Now, Carmen Electra as an actress is wild. Although it shouldn't be as wild. She has been in plenty of things in the past. Ken Devin as Xanderus. And Dyrich Barda as Tratio. Now, Tratio as a character is very interesting to me. But it is what it is. We'll get to that in a sec. The plot of this thing is the movie 300. I'm just going to say it outright. This is a parody movie this is a parody version of the movie 300. Like, this is no BS. There's no anything around it. This is the movie 300, allegedly. The movie 300 as a parody form. But we'll get to that. Don't you worry about that. But just in case you don't know the plot of this thing, the historic Spartan king, I want to say Leonidas again. What form is Leonidas in? The Pokemon, that is. King Leonidas, armed with nothing but leather underwear and a cape, leads a ragtag bunch of 13 Spartan misfit warriors to defend the homeland against thousands of invading Persians, whom include the Ghost Rider, Becky Balboa, the Autobots, and an ugly hunchback Harris Hilton, and a shaved head Britney Spears. We love a good ripoff here at Terrible Tuesday Movie Night. Don't you worry about that. Now, this is the part of the show where I really just go off. This is the rant and review section of the show. Now, watching this movie, this parody is there are two categories of parodies, and I don't think I've ever talked about this on the show. Or maybe I have. I've done a lot of these. But I want to talk about the fact that there's two different versions of parodies. I may have talked about it too because we watched Jack and Jill. We watched sort of Jack and Jill last week that had Adam Sandler. And of course, we're recording these out of order behind the scenes of how the sausage is made. But I may have talked about it in that episode. So sorry if I'm repeating myself. But that Adam Sandler movie was a serious Adam Sandler movie, not necessarily a parody. However, I think there's two different types of parodies. There's a parody that takes itself seriously, which is this movie, and a movie that is straight up a remake parody of itself. Like, say, for example, 50 Shades of Black, right, is a parody, quote unquote, of 50 Shades of Grey, which is a fan fiction of another series, but that's a whole nother story. 50 Shades of Black is what I would define as a serious parody. Now, thinking to this movie, this is intended to be a tongue-in-cheek. Sorry, let me gather my thoughts. A tongue-in-cheek parody, right? A parody that is intended to not take itself too seriously. And this movie does not take itself seriously at all. This is definitely a movie that does not take itself seriously in the slightest. It is intended to be a joke. I laughed twice in this movie. Spoiler alert, I did not like this movie at all. I hate to break it to you. I did not like this movie at all. It is not what I remember it. And look, context is everything. But watching it at this point in time, I did not like this movie at all, by the way. Now, I will say that I don't know that there's two parodies that we've definitely seen in this movie. Now, we have seen 50 Shades of Black, which is a serious parody, and now a joking parody in Meet the Spartans, quote unquote joking parody. I don't think, and again, context is everything, and it was 16 years since I've seen this movie, so a lot has changed, but a lot of the references are still relevant today. Like, let's say the American Idol reference is still a show somehow that is still happening. Oh, I'm getting excited and my monitor is turning off. Whoa, what was I saying? I was saying that this is the joke. Oh, the references. So the references are still valid references. Like, American Idol is still a show that happens, and, you know, Deal or No Deal is a show that still happens, well, particularly here in Australia. So it's not like the references themselves were outdated, but if you're going to make a parody of something, I know, and this was one of my notes, I was very upset that they decided to make fun of, like, Ugly Betty, for example, because that is one of my favorite shows of all time. So it's sad to think that that was something that for them to make fun of, that, you know, haha, you know, we worship this god, and it's a conventionally unattractive person. But Ugly Betty is not that. They kind of missed the point with that. Anyway, so I was definitely not okay with them making fun of Ugly Betty, and they could have actually came up. I feel like this was a movie created by references, and I was in essence watching a clip show. So I was maybe I was watching a clip show. By definition, I was watching a clip show. I was watching a series of TV show parodies, and it just happened to follow the plot of the movie 300 in concept. So I don't know how I feel about watching a clip show as a movie. It's not really, and again, the main plot to only last an hour and 9 minutes. It definitely did not feel like a complete movie in that sense. And look, comparing it to 50 Shades of Black is a bit weird because they're vastly, completely different movies. But again, they're two parodies. I kind of enjoyed the two movies on a similar level for completely different reasons. And 50 Shades of Black kind of missed the point of what made 50 Shades of Grey 50 Shades of Grey, whereas also Meet the Spartans missed the point of what 300 was, which was its alleged source material and inspiration. So I kind of, I don't quite know how I feel. I didn't like it, I will say. And look, I'm going to address this, and hopefully this doesn't land me in too much of trouble, but the joking and stuff around homosexuals kind of weighed a bit thin. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was definitely way too latent, and that's why I chose the clip at the top of the show to kind of demonstrate that. Yes, you can have them be... rather the times in this movie that they acknowledged the fact that they're homosexuals, but they didn't... When they blasted it in your face, it kind of sort of didn't... it just kind of took me out. I'm like, well, why are you having a beer commercial, like, talk about, like, mention that they're gay? Like, just, if you're gonna have, like, blatant product placement that this movie had, I want to know why the reference, why all of the product placement either referred to someone's derogatory status, like whether they were homosexual, or the Krispy Kreme product placement with them making them fat. Like, it's just so strange to me looking at through a 2024 lens. I don't know when this is airing, but I'm recording it in 2024. That it definitely just didn't sit right with me. That yes, have them be gay, that's fine, but and have this the high fives to the women and kissing on the open mouth for the men. That's fine. I get that joke, but when they blatantly threw it in our face, that's when I kind of had the issue with it. So there you go. Well, that got heavy really fast. Now I wanna skip around with my notes. So I mentioned Ugly Betty. I mentioned the jokes about the homosexuals. Speaking of the product placement, do you think that those brands paid to have that space? Do you think Krispy Kreme approached the cast of this and went, I know what'll be funny. I will give you 20 boxes of Krispy Kremes for $2,000, and that'll be $2,000, and you get to refer to it for a 20-second clip. Do you think that they had product placement? No, I don't think they did. I think it was just a coincidence, and it just so happened to be it just so happened to be a product placement. I don't think no brands wanted to associate themselves with this, particularly a notable brand like Gatorade. Gatorade's not paying anyone in this movie to drink Gatorade, right? Surely. I would like to hope so. If I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong, but surely no reputable brand is tying themselves to this brand. But all in all, it was a movie. I watched it. I didn't like it as such. I think, yes, this movie has been tainted, but I think that outside of that, it just wasn't an enjoyable watch. I laughed twice. I just sat and I watched it. I didn't feel anything. There are movies on the Terrible Tuesday movie backlog that are like that, by the way. I watched the movie and I have to kind of figure out my opinion as I go. But, there are compare it to the worst movie I've rated on this list, The Legend of Hercules. That movie didn't have any redeeming factors at all in it, and it was just a big, dull snooze fest. This movie wasn't that. It was at least watchable. I didn't really like the color scheme on it. It was definitely not worthy of that tan, dull, prehistoric kind of tinge. It had this weird tinge to it that I couldn't shake. But yeah, it definitely had its moments. It definitely had, like I said, I laughed twice. By the way, before we get on out of here, the mid 2000s credit roll, the mid 2000s mid rolls were crazy, and the fact that they went for 6 minutes was also crazy. Right? I'm not insane for saying that 6 minutes of mid rolls is insane, considering we watched Jack and Jill last week, and that didn't have that many mid rolls in it. So that is crazy to me. I suppose that movie was 2011, but still. But yeah, all in all, I did like the soundtrack. The soundtrack was good, by the way. You know, it was an appropriate soundtrack as well. It was definitely an appropriate soundtrack for what it was. The writing, the original script writing was kind of trash. I'm not gonna lie. The whole Sir Trader thing was definitely, oh, he's a traitor, so you must sleep with him. That's why he's called Sir Trader. And I'm like, oh my god. Well, no, he wasn't Councilman Trader. Sorry, we had to switch microphones because the microphones I was using, they ran out of battery. Oh no. Okay. What I was saying though, yeah. So Sir Tratornado was like, oh, he's a traitor. Anyway, it's dumb. The naming convention was dumb, and you know, it was. I didn't mind the homosexual references. Obviously, hello, me criticizing on gay references would be calling me homophobic. Like, what? Anyway. It would be kind of redundant. But what I was thinking was, again, when they shoved it down my face, that's when I had the problem with it. And the whole beer commercial at the top of the show sort of demonstrated that a little bit. So I didn't enjoy this movie at all. It was definitely, I didn't take anything away from this movie, and I think that is a key factor, that I have to sort of take something away from this movie in order for me to enjoy it. So, all in all, I'm going to give this movie a 2, I think. I'm going to give this movie a 2. I think it deserves a 2. It's not the worst thing I've watched. It is kind of on par with the other parody movie in this series. It was kind of felt empty, I'm not gonna lie. Like, that is so wild to me that it felt empty. Sure, the fight scene, the overall fight scene, when they finally got to it in like the last 15 minutes of this movie, kind of felt alright, but it took so long in order to get there. And like, the one major flaw I had was they kind of referred to, oh, stop using these jacked up video game references, but the whole takedown of the final boss revolved around him transforming into a car that he himself even said was fictional. So that was a little bit of a cop-out. Like I said, just didn't like this movie. I feel bad because, again, this is the first time I've watched a movie and that it was a repeat on Terrible Tuesday Movie Night, meaning that it's a movie I've already seen previously, and I feel bad that I don't like it. But, you know, again, 16 years in between viewings. Yeah, I watched it in 2008 when it first came out, but I just... It definitely was of its time as well. I think that's a bit of it. And I know I shouldn't judge movies off that, but again, it's my show. So there you go. Feel free to leave your comments too. Like, if I'm wrong and on some sort of crack cocaine and you think that this is the best movie ever, please feel free to comment that. I don't think I've mentioned that enough in these episodes. So please do tell me if I'm wrong or how I'm wrong. I'm more than welcome and open for feedback. So there you go. A bit of a shorter episode this week because it is a solo one, but we'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Instagram and TikTok are at the Dale Segev. TheDaleSegev. I forgot my own Instagram and TikTok. Discord, bit.ly/Dale Discord. Merch, bit.ly/GLS Merch. Campbell D Productions at gmail.com. For feedback, if you prefer to email it, that is definitely where you should email it to. Next week has already been recorded, so I know for a fact that this is next week's episode. We are reviewing the musical to film magical spectacular Cats. Cats is next week's movie of choice. But until then, I've been Dale Segev, coming at ya, and we'll see you all next week. Bye!